The gang's all here now. Pete Prisco tapping in with us, and we talked about that Detroit Lions game just now, Rick. We'll start with you. They're on a 3-game win streak. They're now 7-7, fully with a shot to maybe make the playoffs. Your winners start there.
Yeah, no, Detroit's a very good football team right now. Why you can say that is even though their offense didn't play the best yesterday, they struggled a little bit in the red zone, but they were able to come up with plays on special teams. They were able to play well on defense. And Dan Campbell does not coach with fear. And then you look at this call by Ben Johnson. They catch the New York Jets in man coverage. A free agent college tight end breaks free. C.J. Mosley busts the coverage, and this kid can run. 51-yard touchdown, and that wins the game for the Detroit Lions.
Rest of your winners, where are we looking at with the NFC playoff picture first when you see that situation now? Cowboys, we've talked about them, but how do you see this shaking out?
I don't know. This will be interesting. It'll be interesting with the Giants and the Commanders with that tie that's there. Does that have an effect on the Seahawks? Although the Seahawks are struggling some, but the Red Hot Lions. And the Red Hot Lions, I think, still have a legitimate chance to get in the playoffs.
And the rest of your winners?
Yeah, A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. Though Jalen Hurts struggled yesterday in the first half, he threw 50%, threw 2 interceptions. These guys are always consistent week in and week out, and both of them combined for over 300 yards of offense yesterday and receiving yards. And then the Bengals scoring 34 unanswered points. They were down 17 points. The second half, they can score at will very quickly when they get into rhythm. And their defense is playing good. The two things that Cincinnati has to do before they go into the playoffs, they have to score faster and start faster in games. They haven't scored a point in the first quarter in 3 out of their last 4 games, and their defense is pretty beat up. So they're going to get their depth tested on the defensive side of the ball, especially with Hendrickson and Hubbard out.
You mentioned the second half team. You can say the same thing for one of Pete's winners in Trevor Lawrence, who turned it on against the Cowboys here in Jacksonville.
Yeah, Trevor Lawrence is playing outstanding football. I mean, think about this. He threw 4 touchdown passes on Sunday, but he has 13 and only 1 pick in his last 5 games. And there were questions about him a couple weeks ago. Some people said he wasn't a generational quarterback. Those questions have been answered. But more than that, he fumbled late in the game. They were driving to go get the tying field goal, and he fumbled. And here you can see one of his laser shots to Zay Jones, who, by the way, has been an outstanding free agent pickup for Jacksonville. And here's another one to Marvin Jones. And he's just playing with rhythm. He's timing. He's good. He's been confident. And this is a team, when you look at them, watch out. And I sincerely mean that. Watch out for the Jacksonville Jaguars, because they're a bunch of young guys. And you can look at the schedule. Jacksonville controls its own destiny. Think about that. It's December. They control their own destiny after being a disaster midway through the season, and they have winnable games. It all come down probably to the Titans game in Week 18. And by the way, in 1996, the Jacksonville Jaguars were 4-7 at one point, and they ripped off 5 straight wins to get into the postseason. Went to Buffalo that year and knocked Jim Kelly out and beat the Bills as underdogs. Went to Denver that year the following week and beat the Broncos as 15-point underdogs. I'm not saying this team can do that, but it's starting to have that feel a little bit. And Trevor Lawrence is carrying them on his right arm. He is a bona fide superstar and will be a top 10 quarterback in the NFL next year.
You mentioned history there. You got another one of your winners that happened on Saturday with the Vikings, with the biggest comeback we've ever seen in NFL.
I want to hear this. Pete's been ripping my Vikings all year.
Go ahead, Pete.
Well, no, you got to give him credit. I mean, they were a disaster in the first half, but Kirk Cousins was outstanding in the second half. Think about the interception he threw in the first half. He was awful, Rick. Come on, you know that. He threw for 43 yards at a pick.
Give my man some love.
Came back. He threw for 464 and 4. There's your love. He had a great second half, and I give the Vikings a ton of credit for showing the ability to come back. And then Josh Allen. I mean, my gosh, is he carrying that team? He rushed for 77 yards. He threw for 4 touchdowns, 304 in the snow. He's outstanding. And there were a lot of people, by the way, who ripped him to shreds when he came out of Wyoming. In the first couple of years in the league, they ripped him and continued to rip him to try and make themselves look good. They were wrong in a big way. And I know one guy who wasn't wrong about him right here.
Of course. Taking all the credit, per usual, with those winners there, highlighting all the QBs, Kirk Cousins, Josh Allen, and also Trevor Lawrence. But your losers highlighting the GOAT, and not a good way when it comes to TB12.
No, and Tom Brady was awful on Sunday. And Rick, mentioned the 34 unanswered points. Tom Brady had a big hand in almost all of them. He threw 2 picks. He fumbled twice on 2 handoffs. And by the way, he on one handoff and then he fumbled in the pocket. By the way, he blamed himself for the handoff. So that means 4 turnovers for Tom Brady. And the Bucs are reeling right now. They are not a good football team. They're still going to win the division. All they have to do is beat Carolina, beat Atlanta. They'll win the division. But right now, there are a lot of teams around the NFC that wish they get the chance and the opportunity to go play them. It'll probably be the Cowboys, and that'll be perfect for them in the postseason. Then the Ravens offensively. My gosh, you rushed for almost 200 yards. You scored 3 points. Moral of the story, got to be able to pass the ball better, even with a backup quarterback. And then you have the Dolphins. They ran it and averaged 9 yards per rush in the first half. In the second half, only 62, but worse than that, they had 3 third and shorts. You know what they did on all 3 of those plays? They threw it. You know what they did on all 3 of those plays? They didn't convert. That's bad coaching. You got to run the ball when you're running it that well for Mike McDaniel and the Miami Dolphins.
We talked a little bit about the coaching of Bill Belichick with what the Patriots did with deciding to have their laterals, although they weren't coached up that way. One of your losers, we talked a little bit about the Cowboys as well and the way that they collapse in that defense. But what about the NFC bubble teams in that playoff picture?
Yeah, this is going to be incredibly complicated here. Is that you have the Seahawks 7-7. Now they've lost 4 of their last 5 games, and they're stumbling a little bit. The Lions are maybe one of the hottest teams in the NFL right now. You watched the Giants and Commanders game last night. That was a playoff atmosphere, and both of those teams, it could have gone either way. And Cowboys with an X on them, I don't know what that means. They'll get eliminated in the first round again, like they usually do. But right now you have all 3 NFC teams, but you're going to have an NFC South team that gets in there by default that doesn't even deserve in there. And the other point that I want to make on my loser is that Pete Prisco actually dug back into 1995 when he was writing articles on the Jacksonville Jaguars to pull out some history. I mean, come on, Pete, you're digging deep on a Monday morning here.
It was 1996, if you pay attention. It wasn't 1995. It was the second year of their existence. And John Elway and his team were going nuts that year. They were on their way to another Super Bowl, and they knocked them off on the road. I mean, it was an incredible upset. By the way, can I say something about Bill Belichick? You can blame the players all you want, and we prep and we do this. Ultimately, that falls at the feet of the head coach. Preparation. All we do is prepare. That falls right at Bill Belichick, okay? He's to blame. If you're to get all the credit for all the great stuff you've done over the years, and he's arguably maybe the best coach of all time, then you're responsible for that disaster on Sunday.
Ooh, we made a mistake.
If you coach them up and tell them to go down, though, I don't know what you can do in that situation. If you tell them to go down, we'll see what happens next for the Patriots.
Did he tell them to go down? Do they prep for that, Zach?
It's the
Is that something they do?
The historian Pete Prisco there.
Pete, thank you for checking in with us. You can check out the With the First Pick podcast featuring our guy right next to us, Rick Spielman and Ryan Wilson. They get you ready for the NFL draft, breaking down the guys you should be keeping an eye on as we prepare for the season to wrap up and look forward to a next one to follow after that. Like and subscribe. Listen to With the First Pick right now.
Do you want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis, no yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.